Welcome to Cherry Bekaert's Tax Services Podcast. I'm Laurel Tinsley, the leader of our Strategic Financing Services Group. In today's podcast, we're exploring the basics of new market tax credits, the program, and their valuable impact on community developments, and how organizations can take advantage of this program. Joining me today is David Altman, a project finance senior manager on our team. David, can you introduce yourself to our listeners today?
Hi, Laurel, certainly. I began my career by joining the Peace Corps. I mention that because it sort of led to a lifetime commitment to public service. I completed some graduate degrees, PhD in genetics and an MBA from Vanderbilt, and then had an academic career focusing on research and policy for life sciences as a tenured professor at Texas A&M and Cornell. Then I left academia, and the first thing I did was start working for a Fortune 500 company, which after 5 years led me to think about forming my own company, which was 2001. The New Market program began shortly after that, and I've been involved with it ever since the beginning, towards the last decade of running my company. That was exclusively what I was doing, helping sponsors with new market tax credit projects. So in 2024, I decided to join forces with the wonderful organization that you've set up in Cherry Bekaert.
We're happy to have you. Thanks for your background. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for joining us on our team. Let's start off by sort of beginning our discussion about the program. Anybody who's hearing about new market tax credits for the first time, can you break down what new market tax credits, or sometimes called NMTCs, are and the role that they play in community revitalization?
The first thing I'd like to mention about it is that it meets the mission of an agency that's established within the Department of the Treasury. And the specific mission is to expand economic opportunity for underserved people and communities by supporting growth and capacity of a national network of community development lenders, investors, and financial service providers. So that's the general mission. What it actually then does is provide tax credits to attract investment from the private sector through either loans or equity investments to businesses, which are for-profit, or nonprofits that are located in low-income communities. And since the inception of this program, we've often measured it in terms of how many jobs, quality jobs, that are created by the program, which now number about 1 million. And this has provided quite a bit of greater access to community facilities and commercial goods and services that benefit low-income communities.
Sounds like a diverse program. That's wonderful. Before we dive deeper into examples and the different types of impacts, I wanted to touch base on the report that we look at quite often in our area. The New Market Tax Credit Coalition issues an annual report about the New Market Tax Credit Program, and the report is fairly comprehensive, providing resources and valuable insights about the use of the resource in the program. It highlights some successes of the program and offers guidance on how organizations can effectively access these new market tax credits. David, would you mind sharing a few insights for our listeners on the coalition report and how that information in the report might help them become an awardee or receive an allocation of new market tax credits?
I think it's important to stress that things have changed over time. They have not remained static. And this is actually a good thing from my point of view, because it encourages a lot of input that has been taken by the CDFI fund about what can benefit low-income communities the best, actually. So now we find that 85% of new market tax credit financing was in severely distressed census tracts, according to the most recent report, and that 28% are in non-metro counties. Those are new highs for those kinds of programs, and it's allow it to become more diversified and not just be too concentrated in certain geographic areas. pricing has changed over time, and pricing is a very important thing to look at. Right now, the median price is 79 cents. It's been slowly going up since the pandemic period. The range in this report goes from 72 cents to 87 cents. So that's a fairly large range. From my point of view, it's also important to note that Native American and Native Hawaiian and Native Alaskan projects are more frequently done than they've ever been done in the past. It's now 7% of all the financing, and there was a record total of $314 million that was invested in those communities. The other thing that was significant is it's the first time, I believe, that we've ever seen manufacturing and healthcare, which are about equal in how much they contribute to the total, are now more than 50% of all new market tax credit allocation going out to projects. So that gives folks some idea of where the emphasis will be in the future.
That's helpful information. That's great. And the focus on manufacturing and healthcare being 50% of the projects is a change in trend over time, but it is helpful to know where, and it sort of highlights what has been needed of the program as well over the last few years. Can you share a few examples from your history of projects you've worked on that were received an award of new market tax credits? And why were the projects important to their communities, and what kinds of impacts did they create for those communities that they were located in?
Well, we always try to have impactful projects. We want to be able to say our projects generated a lot of extra jobs in communities that were quite in need, or other types of services. Sometimes we can't tell which projects are going to work out that way. So I had one project that involved 20 million of new market tax credits, which, was not a small amount, but it was not a large amount either. It was to build 9 very small health clinics in rural communities in Oregon. Now, at the time, we were having Medicaid expansion, which accounted for the dramatic impact of this project, because for Medicaid expansion, you had to expand the opportunity across in the entire state. Every state had to do this. And in big states with different regions, it was difficult often to meet those numbers. In this case, with those 9 small clinics, 150,000 individuals were added to the Medicaid roll in rural communities, which was particularly hard to do, so that Oregon became one of the first states to meet Medicaid expansion. That meant that the state government got 2 checks, actually, that totaled $1.9 billion. That was unrestricted money. And that is a B. That is not a mistake. That did not add to any of my small fee, but it was great for the state of Oregon to get almost $2 billion to balance their budget. But even more remarkably, this project was actually nominated to be Clicky of the Year. It got a fair amount of attention, even from the coalition, for example. And so the largest dental provider in the United States at the time, DentaQuest, got very interested in this project. They made an investment in this company, which, by the way, could get no loans or any other kind of financing other than the new markets. That's how critical new markets can sometimes be. So they then made a big investment in this firm, and they asked the firm to take this model to 20 states. So millions of people got extra care that they'd never been able to have for oral health. And that made a fairly significant improvement for the lives of many people across the country. So I was pleased, but that was not intended with how it went on, but that happened.
That's wonderful catalytic impact that was created by just that one smaller investment and how that grew. Do you have another example of something that?
Yes, I wanted to give one example of a program we're working on right now with our group, Laurel. This is for a small Clicky project, which is only $4 million of allocation, and it's used for refinancing debt. This is for a nonprofit in this case, which is a manufacturing facility, and they provide jobs to primarily disabled adults that can't find work anywhere else. So they have manufacturing lines that are amenable to that type of employment or even part-time for individuals like that. It's a 125,000 square foot building. And the commercial debt for the acquisition of that building is currently running at an interest rate of 8%. But the small Kalicki program will lead to a interest-only payment for 7 years at about 2.5%. So again, this also shows some of the features that even a small program can have a dramatic impact in helping social services.
That's wonderful. One of the things that you and I know to be true, David, is that navigating the New Market Tax Credit program can be complex. How does the Strategic Financing Services team at Cherry Bekaert assist organizations in accessing New Market Tax Credits and ensuring successful outcomes for the clients and the low-income communities they serve?
Well, Cherry Bekaert has a very interesting approach. It's all been your leadership, Laurel, about having a comprehensive group that covers multiple facets. And because we are remote with the 20 or so employees in our small group, we actually have boots on the ground nationwide. So we have a nationwide series of connections between all of the folks in the group, which is very important for the relationships. It's about people in these communities and with the investors, the CDEs, and other groups that are involved. Secondly, I think that it's also important to note that the Cherry Bekaert group has people with very different backgrounds. There are folks that have come into this industry through the legal profession. Some of us have come in through academia, for example, and having a diverse group of individuals provides different backgrounds that I think adds a team approach that can be very comprehensive, and we can rely on other folks in our team to give excellent service. And then finally, being part of a larger company, a fast-growing accounting firm like Cherry Bekaert, enables us to have other connections with groups that can provide services in a comprehensive way for our clients. So this can include audit. This can include working with some of the twinned type of programs like historic tax credits, like low-income housing tax credits, like opportunity zones, and other specialties with folks in finance for government accounting and nonprofit accounting and other applications like that.
Great. And can you delve a little bit more deeply into the process once we've signed a client and we're working with the client? How do we help them put together their project and go to market to find allocation for them? You have any thoughts on sort of that little step of the process?
I think the most important thing about any project is what's the story behind it. You have to have a story that really grabs people's attention. You just can't say, well, put X number of dollars into this community and it will work out. It's not like that. It's very important what the impact for the community is going to be. So I think that is the most important thing that we actually do. It's something that's hard to quantify, but we help develop a story that shows how this is going to be impactful to the mission of what this Department of the U.S. Treasury is actually all about. And that also brings the enthusiasm to not only how we do the rest of our job, but the other people that we're trying to have partnerships with, the investors, the lenders, and the other parties that are involved with doing this. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is making sure that you've considered all the options, because it isn't like this is a cookie cutter type of a program. It isn't like you just go get a document and have people sign it and then they go on about their business. No, it's an evolving process. So you have to have people use their imagination to try to come up with, okay, what's the best way to get the maximum value and make it a win-win all the way around. So I think those are the most important things that we do. And then the fact that we can add whatever extra services are needed, because there's always surprises in every one of these projects that you are not, or that people generally aren't thinking about until you get into the details of it. So it's important to be able to have enough experience with that to be able to successfully close in an efficient way to get the maximum value and make sure it's a win-win all the way around for the investors and for the project.
That's great. Yes, having the passion and that human touch, I think, is really important. And then having the data to back that up. Those are really good points, so that you have the emotional side, but also the empirical and the data-driven side, so you can answer both. And that's great. Great example, David. So looking ahead, what do you see as the future for new market tax credits and their role for community development? Do you have a crystal ball you want to get out for us today, David?
Wow. Well, whatever I'm going to predict is probably not going to happen, because, as we know, the program takes turns that are somewhat unpredictable. But I think that's also the vibrancy that's there, and why the program is so relevant, because it can respond to what needs are. So the fact that there's been 73 billion of allocation, at least that's been as of January of this year, and there's going to be more, that is a pretty large number. And when you realize that it's not any government money, it's basically all from the private sector, and that $8 are generally seen to be resulting from every $1 of new market tax credit allocation. That's a tremendous impact over time, and that's why we get to some of these numbers with the jobs and the other types of things. We are also looking at a new round, which is the largest that we've seen. It's a double round. We call the double round of 10 billion. And that's going to make projects all over the country be happening at a dramatic pace, which will, I think, also get more attention to the program. So I see a very bright future ahead, and it's been supported in a bipartisan way. It's actually a long-term program that's been not involved in ideology with the projects, other than just trying to do something that helps all Americans by helping the low-income areas to not become, a drag on our overall development.
Thanks for your insights, David. Great, helpful comments today. I think that your comments about vibrancy and having a hopeful outlook for the future is really important at this time. I think when there's change, a lot of people are wary of change, but if we realize that we're matching that change with what's needed and we're being able to adapt to what's coming, I think that's always helpful. So we appreciate the insights you've shared, and we're really excited to see what's next for the New Market Tax Credit Program. It's a powerful tool that we believe fosters growth and change in communities that need it the most. Now I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in today to our episode. This has been Cherry Bekaert's Strategic Financing Services team, and we have been leading you through the Cherry Bekaert's Tax Services podcast for today. If you've been interested in hearing more about new market tax credits, please feel free to reach out to either of the speakers today, Laurel Tinsley, myself, or David Altman on my team. We also have a large team here that's ready to answer any questions you might have. I'll just end with the last thought that new market tax credits are what's necessary. There's so much need. Whenever people ask me if I'm worried, I always say I don't have time to be worried, because there's so much that needs to be done. And as long as we have a program or we have hope for the future, then we can keep making a positive impact on the communities we serve. And that's really what drives me. So thanks for your time, David, and thank you, listeners, for joining us today. And we hope to have enlightened you about a topic you were not previously familiar with, or at least given you some additional insights if you were already familiar with new market tax credits. Thank you.